Hello there. Happy Friday. Did I totally surprise you and throw you off because you're getting a podcast episode from me on Friday and not Monday? I hope so. I'm feeling kind of feisty this week, so I wanted to just completely throw things off schedule and do this podcast episode to give you a light note on Friday. This style is going to be a little bit different because it's literally just going to be answering a lot of the listener Q&As. I guess I'd be answering the Q's and giving you the A's. But I get a lot of questions throughout the week, and I do my best to answer all of them. So this is just an easier way for me to kind of do that, and in a way that is super fun. Now, there's a lot to cover. So there's some questions about how to fix your muscular imbalances, proper way to train for a triathlon, such as should you continue to do strength training with your cardio? Should you just do cardio and a little bit of strength training? Then we got some questions about how to handle scary thoughts. When you have thoughts that freak you out or stress you out, what to do with them. Also about emotional connections with weight gain and weight loss. But to start all of this off, just to kind of give you an end of week little light podcast episode, I'm going to share with you something that's kind of fun, and if they continue to come in, then I will continue to share them. So I joined a dating app a week ago, and in all honesty, I am not a believer in dating apps. I feel like it is the most non-organic way to meet somebody. However, multiple people think that I'm being ridiculous and I should give it a shot. So I'm doing this more, one, out of boredom, two, just to prove these certain people wrong, and three, because you know what? If my true person is on a dating app, then fine. I will admit that it worked and that's totally fine. And if he's not, then that's fine. I'll find him somewhere else. But what I'm going to start this with is in joining dating apps. Man, the pickup lines that have come in this week, I just wanted to share my top 3 with you, just so you can get a little bit of this experience with me, and so that I hope it gives you a good laugh, because keep in mind, this is 2021. This is what our society has come to with social media and people not knowing how to actually have conversations and socialize with each other. So I actually had to screenshot these to make sure I had them for you. So my number 1 that I want to share with you for these dating apps before we get into the listener Q&As comes from, I'm saying this person's name because if you can be this cheesy, you get the name, comes from Frank. Frank, this is the first interaction we have had. Not, hey, how are you? Like, let's chat. This is what the society has turned to for the dating world. First thing, I have a problem with my silverware. I have all forks and knives, but no spoons. I would like for you to be my spoon. Emoji smiley face. That is my number 1. I mean, it's pretty clever, but that's how we start? I can't. All right, so number 2. Damn, girl, you look like an angel, but what I would really love to see is you be my devil. That's the first interaction, guys. Number 3, this is my number 3, not because it's something super clever, but I would like to preface this is not my grammar. This is verbatim what it says. Again, no hi, how's it going? Happy Friday. I'd love to get to know you. We're getting straight to this. I seen you, and you should let me seen you so we can go seen some sushi together. What? What does that mean? I don't even understand. Are you wanting me to give you permission to ask me to go look at sushi together? And you've seen? What does this even mean? Anyways, I hope that gave you a good laugh and just kind of lightened things for you and helped you realize, like, you know, I don't know what's going on in your life. It's not that bad. If you have proper grammar and you have enough social skills to be able to say, hi, how are you? I think you're doing pretty well in life. All right, so listener Q&As. So the first one that I got was asking about how to fix muscular imbalances in the body. And this is a great question, and it is something a lot of people have issues with. So first thing, think of the body like a pulley system, like an elevator. I mentioned this in another podcast episode, I believe. If not, that's all right. You're going to get all the information. So if you think of it kind of like a pulley system or like a scale would be a better analogy. If you are struggling with a weak part of the body, so let's say your right arm is stronger than your left arm, you have a choice. You can train both arms equally, so that way they are equally as strong. Or if you are somebody who uses machines a lot, or you are always using just barbells, you're probably going to end up with a very severe muscular imbalance because the body is smart and so is the brain. And even though you are using weights and machines and barbells, it is very easy for one side of the body that is stronger to compensate for the weaker side. So this is also why I always put people on dumbbell training programs. Dumbbell training forces the body to balance itself out. You cannot hold two 20-pound dumbbells and not have both parts of your body working equally as hard because it's a dumbbell. You can't do bicep curls with dumbbells and your right arm do the curl more for the left arm. The left arm's got to catch up, or vice versa. So one of the ways you can correct this is to start switching up your routine, your strength training routine, your workout routine, getting off of machines or getting off of a barbell for a little bit. I love barbell, but if you have imbalances, and do the same things using dumbbells. It's actually interesting. I have a client right now who's actually training with me in person. He is training for a triathlon. And right off the bat, normally if you're in front of me, I can tell you what the imbalances are and I can tell you the exact exercises to correct it because I can see it. I've done it long enough that I can recognize it. And he's training for a triathlon. And he's always used machines, cable machines, the typical machines at the gym. And so in our first few sessions, I was like, all right, look, I'm going to warn you, you're going to be very sore in the beginning because your body is not used to having to stabilize itself in a workout like you are about to do with the dumbbells. On top of that, in a normal exercise that you use a machine, your body can't manipulate this to compensate for the weak spots. Those weak spots are going to have to do the work. But as soon as we were doing a dumbbell bent over rows, and he bent over to do the dumbbell rows, and I could just see the imbalances in the low back. And I said, are you left-handed or right-handed? Because it looks like your right side is your strong side, and your left side looks a little bit weaker from the muscular development standpoint. And so we've worked through a lot of those imbalances, but you can also do it if you stand in the mirror and you look head on, just keeping your posture normal. Typically, you can see an imbalance if one shoulder sits higher or lower than the other. You have to work on this, though. Otherwise, as time goes on, if you don't, the muscular imbalances get worse. People think that just by exercising and working out, that's going to fix all of the problems, and that's not the case. If you have no idea what to do for dumbbell exercises and dumbbell workouts and strength training and how to do these things, that's exactly what my Phoenix Rising program is all about. You can sign up for that. It's at ashleydrummons.com. You don't have to, but this is what I do. This is what I love to do, is help people with this stuff. So you can check that out. But to do it on your own, really just think about what you're doing. Ask yourself, 1, how can I do this with dumbbells instead of with a machine? Number 2, how can I do this in a way that is less stable than normal so it forces my stabilizing muscles to work? So, for example, this particular client, I had him do dumbbell bent over rows, unstabilized. So most people, if they do one arm dumbbell bent over rows, they will put one hand on a bench or a box or something to hold themselves up while they do the row. So instead, I had him take his hand off of that, just bend his knees, get in a staggered stance position, and perform the bent over row. Because what's happening is when you don't have that stabilizing portion, Now your obliques, your core, your hamstrings, your low back, all those deep stabilizing muscles are having to work a lot harder. So that's the biggest thing. The other thing, everybody's got low back problems. Not everybody, just I hear about it a lot. If your low back is bothering you, it is because you need to strength train. It's that simple. If you have low back problems, it means your core is not strong enough. To get your core strong enough, you need to do strength training movements that work out your total body and your deep stabilizing muscles. That way, your low back is not carrying around all of your weight and all of the stress all day, every day. The other thing too with low back, remember, the body is a pulley system. If you have a tight low back, it's probably because your hip flexors are short. So if you're in a seated position, whether it's sitting at a desk or you're driving all day long, think about the position that your back and your low abdomen and your hip flexors are in, all right? They're in a crunched position with your hip flexors and your low back is opened up wide. So what do you need to do? You need to do the opposite. You need to open your hip flexors and help tighten the low back. This is how we balance it out. All right, I don't want to spend a whole podcast episode, although I could, on fixing your muscular imbalances. Again, if you want help specifically with what you're dealing with, then send me a message on my website and we can talk about that more. So the other question that I got was about emotional effects with weight gain and weight loss. And the question was, hey, Ashley, I notice sometimes when I'm very stressed, I can eat more. But also sometimes if I'm really sad, I eat less. Is there any connection with your emotions and weight gain and weight loss? And the answer is yes, 100%. Everybody has this. That's why it's called stress eating or like comfort food, because it literally provides comfort. So there's a few connections to this. And I mean, for the most part, we'll just keep this pretty basic because again, there's more questions. But the main thing behind this is when you have things, okay, so think about when you lose something or somebody. So say it's loss of a loved one, say it's loss of a job, a pet, something, like you feel loss. A lot of times what happens when you actually allow yourself to feel that loss is it's a very heavy loss in the body. People tend to lose a lot of weight when you feel it, because I'm going to explain what happens when you don't feel it. When you feel the loss, your body, that emotional energy is just constantly like being flushed out of you. You probably don't have much of an appetite. You've been around people before that are like, I just don't feel like eating. I'm just not hungry. It's because all of that is a process of grieving and experiencing loss. Now, on the flip side, when you don't process that emotional energy, when you hold on to things like grief and pain and sadness, your body literally will do things psychologically and physically to hold that weight in your body because it's an emotional energy and it has an emotional charge. So that means the people who are using food to comfort themselves, it further stuffs that emotional pain and grief into the body. This is usually where weight gain happens. When people are really unhappy, but they don't deal with the unhappiness, they gain a lot of weight. They feel depressed. It's because the heavy energy that they are not acknowledging, feeling, and addressing will turn into literal heavy things in the body. You start eating heavy food. You start drinking heavily because you're matching the vibration. So hopefully that makes sense. That's also why, like, when you feel really good and light and energized and happy, you're working out, you're eating clean, you're getting plenty of sleep, it all matches the vibration. And then what happens when you feel like crap? You're like, I'm just going to binge eat and watch TV and this and that. It's the same thing. So yes, your emotions do have a direct effect on weight gain, weight loss, on your overall health. That's why anytime people tell me they go to a personal trainer, anytime they go to a nutritionist, doctor, anybody, and they're not seeing results, they're like, I just feel like I'm stuck. I'm not really getting anywhere. I don't see any results. I don't see anything happening. I always ask them, well, what kind of mindset stuff did you do? What did you do from an emotional component? Did you do any kind of nutritional journaling or meditation or emotional healing? And every time they're like, oh, no, what is that? I don't even know what that is. And like, it blows my mind that this still happens, but it's because you can't fix one thing without fixing the other. And the same is true with anything in your life. You are an emotional being. You are a very deep, incredibly complex, emotional, soulful being. You cannot expect to have something affect you emotionally and it not have external proof that you're affected emotionally. When people get heartbroken, a lot of times they get sick. They come down with the flu or the cold because the body just feels broken. People feel grief. They feel loss. They feel happiness. They feel sadness. Like, yes, it is all connected. So if there's something going on for you with weight gain or weight loss or anything physical, check out the podcast episode on your emotional body and your energetic body, and it'll help explain it a lot more so you can really figure out what is going on for you. Okay, so that's enough of that. I had to actually go back in my phone and pause this recording for a second to look up the message for this other question, which is all about reverse dieting. So I got a question that says, "Hey Ashley, I love your post. I'm 5'3". I weigh around 97 pounds. I am slightly underweight and I'm currently in my 4th week of reverse dieting at around 1650 calories, adding 75 calories a week. I do 1 day of 60-minute cardio, 5 times a week of strength training, 15 to 20 minutes of elliptical. I'm eating 1.25 grams of protein per pound. Anyways, my questions are, should I lower my cardio or my daily steps? Also, I am feeling hungrier since I started doing reverse dieting, which doesn't make sense to me because I am eating more. Is this normal? I am trying to build muscle. Do you have any tips on how to build muscle and what I should do for reverse dieting?" So that was a lot. So if you're not familiar with reverse dieting is the concept behind, if you have been in a calorie deficit for a very long time, it's slowly adding calories back into your diet. I actually don't really agree with it per se. I'm not a huge fan of just any diet in general. Like, nutrition is very simple for the most part, unless you have a very serious disease. Try to keep things as natural and organic as processed as possible. Every meal, try and choose a protein source, a fat source, some either a fruit or vegetable or both as complex carbs, and drink a lot of water. It's really not that complicated. It gets complicated when there's all these diets out there and all this information, but regardless, that's essentially what reverse dieting is, where you slowly start to add on to your caloric intake. One, some people do it for weight gain, but 2, some people do it to up their resting metabolic rate. So your resting metabolic rate is the rate your metabolism burns calories at rest. So some people, their base rate is like 1,200 calories. If you have a busier lifestyle, it's obviously higher. All right, so getting into this, her question is, should she lower cardio? So, one, if you are trying to build muscle in general, you don't really need to do a whole lot of cardio. Like conditioning, metabolic conditioning, strength training type circuits are fantastic for both building lean muscle and getting lean and fit. However, if you are underweight and trying to build muscle, what you need to just do in general is eat more and strength train heavy 5-6 days a week. So weight loss repetition usually is anything above 12 reps. So if I'm trying to cut and lose weight, I'll drop my weight and up my reps to more anywhere from 12 to 20. If I'm in a cycle where I'm trying to build lean muscle or get stronger in some of my lifts, I'll drop those down to anywhere from 4 to 8 reps. So if you're trying to build lean muscle, you up the weight and lower the reps. If you're trying to lose weight, you lower the weight and up the reps. So yes, number 1, reduce your cardio stick with strength training for a while until you start to put on a little more weight to get to a normal weight that is healthy for your range. But when you do the strength training, make sure that it's heavy and light reps instead of high reps, because the other one's going to burn more calories. In regards to increasing and decreasing the caloric intake and why you're feeling more hungry, the body adjusts when we adjust. So if you've been eating 1,200 calories for a really long time, what your body does is it will match it. All right, so 1,200 calories is the rate that I need to burn on a daily basis because that's all she's going to give me. So 1,200 calories it is. When you start to eat more, there's a weird phenomena that your body does at first when I have people eat more in general. When you start to eat more, your body actually won't burn it right away, especially if you've been under eating, because your body has been underfed for so long that when you start to eat more, it doesn't actually know what's happening. So it'll store it. Almost like if it goes into starvation mode, we might need all this extra food. We don't really know if she's going to cut our calories again. So let's hold on to all this for a little bit. Then as you consistently do that over time, your body realizes that you have just upped its calories for good and that it's okay and it's safe for it to burn it. So normally people do actually find themselves hungrier when they start to eat more of healthy whole foods, because their body needs that fuel. And now that you're giving it enough, it is constantly burning it. Where before, when the body doesn't get enough of its nutrients, it'll end up just storing it for your own survival, because there is a baseline of calories and macronutrients that you need just for normal functions like heart health, brain health, and natural hormone health. So that would be why you'd be feeling hungrier. So yeah, that's that question, to answer that. All right, so with triathlon training, or really any kind of training, so there's a few people right now that are in the Phoenix Rising coaching program that have asked. They're triathletes, so they started working with me because they do triathlons. And for the first few weeks in the program, I told them, I said, I know you're used to doing like incredibly long endurance training of like 20-mile bike rides, 10-mile runs, 4 days a week, swimming 5 miles, whatever nonsense that I do not have any interest in being a part of. But because we are working on helping you get faster so that your times in all of this are faster, I need you to stop doing that for at least the first few weeks, because you're going to end up burning up all the muscle that we work really hard to build. So to answer the question of, hey, Ashley, while I'm doing these strength training workouts, do I continue to do my regular triathlon training? And the answer is no. No, you don't. Because here's what happens is when you build muscle, and the way I structure workouts are very much like a sprint. So you're not doing 45 minutes. You're not doing 30 minutes of things. It's very fast, quality reps in as little time as possible, using additional load on the body so the body gets used to being able to move weight faster than its own body weight. Because then when we remove that extra weight as the load on the body, you're then going to be so much faster. But these are your fast twitch muscle fibers. So your slow twitch muscle fibers are the ones that help you on those endurance runs. It's the ones that you can just go for hours. Well, maybe some people can run for hours. I can't run for hours, but those are your slow twitch ones. They're the slow burn. Your fast twitch muscle fibers are the ones you use when you sprint. It's the ones you use when you lift something really heavy. It's your explosive movements. Most of the time, triathletes and people who have done long cardio sessions for a really long time, you have great development in your slow twitch. However, you have no development in your fast twitch. So therefore, you have burned off all of your lean muscle that would come from fast twitch muscle fibers, and you're going to end up plateauing in your triathlon training, because the way think of it like a rubber band. If you stretch a rubber band all the way out, so we're going to consider your muscle fibers this rubber band. If you stretch it all the way out and you hold that thing all the way out for a long time and you do this every single day, eventually what's going to happen? It's either going to snap or that thing's not going to have much tension left in it, because this is what happens whenever you do long training. So if I were to stretch this out, stretch it out, now we have this sad, saggy rubber band. If I held one in and I pulled it back and I snapped it, it's probably not going to snap back super fast because it's been so stretched out. Now, if instead we did stuff to tighten that rubber band, I don't really know what you would do, but just stick with me with the analogy, to tighten the rubber band so that we have this like ball of energy that's nice and tight. It's this small rubber band, fits around your wrist. Because it's so tight, if I pulled that back and let it go, it would snap real fast and it would hurt really bad, just because that's what happens when you snap a rubber band. But anyways, this is the way your muscle fibers are. So if you're trying to improve your run time, improve your swim time, improve your your bike time, number one thing, strength train. I don't care who you are. Every time I get asked this, male or female, hey, I'm trying to cut down my mile time. Okay, how often are you strength training? What? Why do I need to strength train? What? Muscle is what explodes and makes you fast. If you don't have enough muscle to do that with fast twitch muscle fibers, what's your plan? Let's see. If you get used to doing 20-minute strength circuits, so for 20 minutes, it's like, imagine you're running for 20 minutes, or even some of my workouts are only like 10 minutes. So if for 10 minutes, I am teaching you how to train your body to move its own body weight as fast as possible with additional load with dumbbell, what do you think is going to happen when we remove that dumbbell? Holy crap, your body's going to be so much faster. So any triathlon, God, I can't talk today. Any triathlete out there, or any athlete in general, people who like doing run clubs or swim clubs, start doing strength training circuits 3 to 5 days a week. And I guarantee you within 2 weeks, I give it 2 weeks, all of your times will be faster, 100% guarantee. So that's what I have to say about that. All right, next question. So the other question I got was about scary thoughts. And we're not going to say these names. Hey, Ashley. So this might sound kind of weird, but sometimes I get these really scary thoughts and it kind of freaks me out and makes me feel like something's wrong with me. For example, sometimes I get really scared about losing a loved one. Or sometimes I get really scared, almost like a hypochondriac, that I'm going to get this weird illness. But it's all these weird thoughts that come up and send me down this really bad spiral thought trail. And it freaks me out and I don't know what to do with them. What is happening to me? Is something wrong with me? And how do you handle this? So, nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with anybody. Thoughts are thoughts. We all have them. Nothing is wrong with you. It's okay that it freaks you out. It's totally natural if you have scary thoughts about dying or someone you love dying or getting some disease. That's actually very natural. Most people have these thoughts. Most people don't talk about them though. So what happens to our brain sometimes is when we start to get in a situation two things actually. If your brain is overstressed and your cortisol levels are too high, it produces stress-related thought responses that are going to send you in a spiral. That's stress. So the way that you would start to reduce that is through meditation, doing some deep breathing exercises, actual exercise, working out, eating healthy, reducing caffeine, all of these natural processes to help reduce stress, and then also paying attention to your thoughts and gently reprogramming them. And what I mean by gently is when you have a thought like, I'm so scared my neighbor's gonna die. Instead of being like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? That's such a terrible thought. What do I do with that? Or trying to too many people try to reverse it too hard where you're like, no, life is great. I love my neighbor. Everything is wonderful. That's a very weird process to do it. Instead, the way you gently change your thoughts is you acknowledge the one that you're having, so you don't ignore it. You just go, oh, wow, that's kind of an interesting thought that I'm thinking that. that's okay. I mean, sometimes people have thoughts like that. It doesn't mean anything about me or anything about them. Just for some reason that thought popped in my mind and no big deal. I'm going to go about my day. Other times, if I have stuff like that come up, I just shoot somebody a text. Hey, just checking in. I thought about you today, making sure you're doing all right. Because sometimes we have thoughts and it's just like a weird signal that's trying to help us of like, hey, I know you haven't thought of your neighbor in a long time, but you should just say hi. Maybe that thought is just to create some sort of action to get you to engage with them. And maybe they were having a bad day and just needed you to check in. But thoughts are just thoughts. And I know that's hard to say when you're in that kind of spiral. And I've definitely been there before where it feels so much bigger and more than your thoughts. But keep in mind, your thoughts can't hurt you. Actions on thoughts can, but your thoughts themselves are just there. It's this free-floating space in your brain. We have the choice of how we participate in them. We can see them as a thought, acknowledge it, and be like, that's really weird. I was like thinking about dying. It scares me to think about death. I don't know what the deal is with death or whatever. Or to have whatever thought that scares you. So that's one thing you can do with it. The other thing too, just in general with scary thoughts, it's always so interesting that we put so much emphasis on scary thoughts and not as much emphasis when we're having positive thoughts. And don't get me wrong, I have to keep myself in check and balance all day, every day. Not like work, but just like sometimes I'm doing really great and I'm on like a good track. And then other days I'm kind of like stuck in my head and having a hard time getting out of it. But it's just always so interesting to me that, like, have you ever thought about that? Like when we have a scary thought or we have a bad day or we have this like negative thought cycle, we put so much fear and attention on that we like start to freak out. Like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Like, why is this going on? What am I doing wrong? How do I fix this? How do I get rid of this thought and out of this cycle? We don't do that though when we have great days and positive days. We're not running around like, oh my God, my brain is doing great today. I feel fantastic. How can I keep this up? No, for some reason, we always overplay the negative. We overplay the negative, I think personally, because most people don't ever talk about the negative, or it's honestly, I don't even like calling it negative. There is no good or bad. It just is. There's no good or bad. There's no right or wrong. There's no positive or negative. It just is. It's just data. But nobody ever talks about the hard days or the scary thoughts or the things that freak them out. So when we have it happen to us, we're like, oh my God, what's wrong with us? Nobody talks about anxiety. Nobody talks about like how they're scared of losing a loved one or that they don't know what they're going to do with their money or their finances. And I am thinking about this. So how do I get rid of it and immediately put myself back to normal because I'm trying to just be loved and accepted by everybody. So just accept the thoughts. Get to the place of self-talk where you're like, you know what? So what if I think things that are kind of scary? So what if I have a day that I don't feel super awesome and I'm feeling kind of down? That doesn't mean anything. I still love and accept myself. And if nobody else does, well then who cares? Because that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to prove anything or be anything to anybody else. So that's one of the ways that I would suggest handling the scary thoughts. And just like I said, just gently redirect them, acknowledge them. Every time you acknowledge them, they always start to kind of quiet down, which is also why you always feel better when you're having stuff go on and you talk about it. Don't you always notice when you talk about it, you're like, oh, I actually feel a little bit better. It's because you're acknowledging it and you're just letting it out and letting it go. You can do the exact same thing with your thoughts. And if you don't have anybody to talk to it about, that's where journaling comes into play. Your journal is like your best friend. It is the safe space that you can talk about, say, think, admit anything that you need to. All right, so you had a scary thought about this. Write out the entire scary thought and watch. Nothing's going to happen. Nobody's going to judge you. Nobody's going to tell you you're nuts or crazy. All right, so you had this situation and now you feel guilty about it. Write it out. Because the more you do it and you see it on paper and you get it out, it stops spiraling, but also you start to really just like have a different perspective of like, wow, this really was just in my head and I was really overthinking all of this. All right. I hope that you enjoyed this surprise episode on your Friday. I hope the pickup lines at the beginning of this gave you a good laugh and make you feel a little bit better about life. Oh man, the balls that some people have. Anyways, if you have questions you would like me to answer on one of these podcast episodes, number 1, subscribe to the podcast first so you can hear the answer. And then number 2, send it to me over at ashleydrummons.com and I will definitely take a note of it. I will answer you personally, and then I will also answer it on this podcast, because most of the time when somebody has one question, everybody has the same question. And by you asking, it helps other people as well. If you are interested in the program that I talked about, the workout program, that is also on my website. It's called the Phoenix Rising Program. But I hope you have a fantastic weekend. It's Friday. I don't know what you do for work, but go do something fun. Just take a deep breath. It's all going to be okay. You're on the right path. You might sometimes feel alone, but in reality, we're all in this together. And I will see you on Monday for your normal podcast episode.